Why do we feel it's necessary to yak about bullshit in order to be comfortable?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Welcome back, everyone. It's South of the Border. I'm your Reluctant Gringo, and yes, I hope everybody's enjoyed their weekend so far, and if you've got the day off today, awesome. I just hope everybody's having fun, but apparently some of you I pissed off, and it was kind of entertaining to to see some of those comments. So we're going to get into some Supreme Court things here in a minute. And then we're going to get back into part 2 of our Republican tax bill overview and kind of go through a few more things that I read through and kind of had to research to get a better, clearer understanding of it all. But some of you didn't like. I learned a lesson today on the internet or over the weekend on the internet that if when you challenge the king, their loyal subjects get mad, and I challenged Donald Trump, which I thought as an American, you're supposed to challenge your leaders. You're supposed to ask questions. You're supposed to give your opinion. You're supposed to participate. But apparently, wow, some of you took some exception to that. So let's see. I got called the Whore of Babylon, which is, I haven't heard that one in a while. I'm going to try to use that as like my new nickname for like the next game I got to play. You know, my open online, like, you know, now entering the arena, the Whore of Babylon. But so that was fun. Kind of seeing that one again. I haven't heard that one in a while. Let's see here. A bunch of you were screaming at me about Obama, which we never talked about Obama, but apparently he's done some things that we all don't like, and I guess that makes it okay for the next person to do things that we all don't like. I guess we could play. I didn't know that was a thing. I try to avoid that because I could go back throughout history and pick every president that's ever served and say, look at what they did. They've all done some shitty stuff, right? So that was interesting and fun. Someone screaming to me about the First and Second Amendment, which I really didn't know that was we weren't really discussing that, but they're very passionate about it. But my point to them back was, if you allow one president a certain amount of power, the next president will wield that same power. So that was my point. So if you allow one president to reinterpret and alter an amendment in the Constitution, what's stopping the next president from doing the same, especially if it's a president you don't like? But that was my point. But wow, people were upset. Never my intention to upset, but I do like the dialogue. I do like having conversation. Policy is policy. Yeah, some things I like. Something I tell you, I'm not a zealot. I'm not a stalwart. I'm not going to bend the knee to either political party at this point in time because I've been a member of both. Then it's just I'm not into all or nothing. So with that, I do appreciate the comments. They did make me laugh. So you probably weren't trying to make me laugh, but I was entertained. So. With that, I guess it's time to piss everybody off again because we're going to get into the news because the Supreme Court has ruled, and some of you ain't going to like it, and some of you are. So it'll be interesting to see exactly how that turns out. The Supreme Court's been busy. They really aren't that busy in May. They're usually on vacation by now, but the Trump administration has kept them busy with all the immigration stuff going on, and it's particularly Venezuela. They haven't ruled on birthright citizenship yet. They're not going. Here's the thing: with that court case that we listened in on, they're going to kick that can down the road. They're not going to make a ruling on birthright citizenship. I don't think at this point. I mean, unless something comes out today, the whole judges and activist judges thing that they're trying to get, if one judge can't stop, they'll probably rule on that, and you're probably going to get a decision on that. And I could see them ruling in Trump's favor on that because they are more interested in the process working as opposed to injunctions. And I think I got that from Alito. His questioning, I think, is more, where they're going to land on. Do I think there's going to be some dissent? Sure. 6-3, 5-4, 7-2, something like that. But I think they're more interested in seeing the process because even Chief Justice John Roberts came up and said, we can have an emergency session. We can hear these cases. It only takes like a month to get ready. He's like, let it happen. Let's hear the cases. Let's hear the actual cases. And I think that's basically what everything that's happening is going to end up at the Supreme Court anyways. And I think they're just trying to figure out a way to get it there. And I'm also thinking they're trying to figure out a way not to become politically involved. The last thing the court wants to do is to look like they're taking a side. At least that's what Chief Justice John Roberts is always saying. He's like, I don't want to look like I'm taking a side. I don't want to look like the court's taking a political side. Does that always happen? No, sometimes it looks like they're taking a political side, but again, that's his intent. But there were a couple of rulings made over the weekend, and actually today, breaking news. I just saw this a few minutes before going on. So, let me find it here for you. Oh, there's my little transition. There we go. So, the Supreme Court is going to allow the Trump administration to cancel protected status of Venezuelans. And this kind of makes sense, right? So they've had this so Venezuelans, about 300,000 of them had this protective status throughout the entire Biden administration. And usually protected status only lasts about 18 months. But the Biden administration kept on extending it and extending it and extending it. And protected status is for a group or a class of people that are fleeing a country or a situation that is, dire, war, civil war, threat of death, things like that, right? I guess you could make that argument for Venezuela, right? It's not really the greatest place on earth right now. It's actually, it's better than what it was a couple of years ago. It ain't great though. And I've met people living in Mexico that have come up from Venezuela to say, don't go back there. They can't even get a bag of rice to feed their family. So it's still hurting. It's still not a nice place. You still don't want to send, you still don't want to, it's not a place where you'd vacation. I'll put it to you that way. It's not on your vacation list. All right. But the Trump administration is going to be allowed. Now, this decision, people are going to read this and going to think the Trump administration is going to take 350,000 Venezuelans and put them on a plane and send them to Venezuela. No, that's not what they're saying. That's not how this is going to happen. Because the Supreme Court did something smart. They ruled on a previous case concerning Venezuela a few days ago in preparation for ruling on this case. So the case that they ruled on. So before we get too far into this one, let's get to the first one that they ruled on. All right, and that has to do with the Alien Enemies Act. Now, they ruled against Trump for the Alien Enemies Act. Let's see here. I believe it's this one. Yeah, so they actually have two opinions on the Alien Enemies Act. So if you didn't know, the Alien Enemies Act is that late 1700s law that Donald Trump, that there were 4 Alien Enemies Act. 3 of them sunset a long time ago. They're ancient vintage. They no longer apply. They have nothing going on. You can't use them. One of them never sunset. They never actually had sunset rules put in place for this particular law. Sunset meaning there's a date in which that law is no longer a law. It's no longer applicable. Okay. Well, this is the law that he's using to basically say the president can just decide whoever he wants to kind of pluck them off and send them out of the country. Unfortunately, what the Trump administration didn't count on is that there is the Immigration and Naturalization Act from, I believe, I want to say the 1970s. I could be wrong. Could be the 80s, which basically says, yeah, they have that power, but you still have to give them judicial review. You have to give them enough time and warning and preparation to be able to challenge all of that in a court of law. So, yeah, you can still pluck them off, put them on a plane, and send them away after they've gone through the judicial process. And that's been set by precedent. Now, those are laws that were passed by Congress. And again, the way it works in the United States, Congress makes laws and passes them. The executive needs to follow and execute and uphold those laws. And then if that doesn't happen, here comes the courts to decide what's going on and if the law is constitutional. So the Trump administration was choosing one law to uphold, the Alien Enemies Act, and kind of ignoring the Immigration and Naturalization Act, which again is a major act that was put through by Congress a long time ago. So the Supreme Court said, hey, you can't do that. So yeah, you can use the Alien Enemies Act all you want, as long as you put them through the court system and you give them fair and equal treatment under judicial review. And so basically the Supreme Court came down and said, you got to slow this down. You got to do what we think is right, which is applying the law equally to these protected classes. So with that in mind, it was very easy to go back to the ruling today. And we'll go back to it right here. The ruling today where it said, Trump can remove this special protected status because it's his right? It's the law. The executive branch determines how long that this protected status can stay on a protected class. Biden decided to extend it multiple times. Trump has the equal power. Again, one power that's given to one president is equally given to the next. So Trump has that equal power to say, no, I want to remove this protected status from this particular group of citizens. And why? Why is the Supreme Court okay? It was a ruling of, I believe, 7-2, 8-1. I think there was only one justice that it was Ketanji Brown Jackson, Associate Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, who dissented. All the other justices said, yeah, this is okay. This is okay. The Trump administration, the president has the power to do this. Why is this even a question? Well, it's a question because people sued. Okay. Well, they did their job. They said to the Trump administration, this is your right. You have this right. And the reason why they're comfortable doing that is because they already said 2 days ago in terms of the Alien Enemies Act and Venezuela immigrants that you have to give them judicial review if you're going to deport them. So they're already saying, listen, we've already set up the playing field so these people get equal protection under the law. Therefore, they don't need this special protection under the law anymore. And we can preserve the executive branch's authority. Pretty smart. You have to really think, if you really think of it that way, it's pretty smart. It's not only preserving the power of Congress, who passes the laws and says this is what the law should be, but it's also preserving the executive authority that is held by the president, in this case, Donald Trump, and not doing anything that would damage either of the two branches of government. So the Supreme Court is actually protecting both branches, both of the other branches of the government by saying Article 1 and 2 should be preserved in these manners. And by doing this, that's exactly what they've done. I don't think you can argue with this. I think you can, if you're upset that the Venezuelans lost their protected status, you have to look at it in a way that, hey, guess what? Even though they lost their protected status, they still are protected under judicial review and judicial and under the court system to be able to get a fair trial, because that is the law passed in the United States. If you're upset that they barred Trump from just plucking people off the street with the Alien Enemies Act and putting them on a plane, well, they didn't exactly say you can't do that. They just said you need to take this extra step before doing that. So they didn't take away power. They slowed it down, that's for sure. But again, that's in conjunction with honoring the legislative branch. So to me, a very smart couple of decisions. And you have to think that these were done on purpose because they've already heard these oral arguments. And it's the way it is. Now, are all of these Venezuelans going to be sent away? No, I would think that there's I would say you could see 50% of them that don't actually, when they go to court and they say, I want my asylum hearing, they don't meet the requirements. I could see that happening and saying, okay, well, 150, 175,000 have to go back. I mean, if they don't meet the requirements, they don't meet the requirements. If they do, then immigration judges will actually rule in that regard. And speaking of immigration judges, we're going to need a whole lot of them, I think, at this point. We don't have enough immigration judges. We don't have enough immigration courts to be able to handle all this stuff right now as it is. And the Republican tax bill is going to address that. We're going to take a look at that later. So when we read through that Republican tax bill, by the way, if you're looking for a job, if you're fresh out of college, if you're kind of like, hey, maybe I should change careers, man, there's a lot of money going to a certain few places that if you want a job, you could do quite well. And we're going to kind of talk about that. But here we go to the Supreme Court. Now, like I said, I expect either today, tomorrow, or as late as Wednesday. I can't see it any later than Wednesday, having a ruling on the birthright citizenship, that whole case. Again, a lot of you in the comments were angry when I was talking about it, saying, you don't know how the Supreme Court's going to rule. Yes, I do. I mean, if you listen to that oral argument, in a lot of cases, you could sit there and go, man, I don't know what's going to happen. But in this case, if you listen to every one of those judges hammer the Trump administration on birthright citizenship, there's no way they're touching that. They're going to let that, they're not even going to address that. They're going to send that back to a lower court and let that percolate back up to them. So they actually have to have a hearing on just the merits of that case. So they're not going to even touch that right now. But hey, again, now we talk about activist judges. This case actually makes me think that Trump is going to win in the realm of, hey, there's too many, there's like 1,000 judges out there across the country. And apparently right now, any one of them can have an injunction and say it's a universal injunction. It's nationwide, right? And it's going to stop the Trump administration's agenda. It could put an end to whatever executive order they're challenging. Well, this ruling is in regards to a judge who probably shouldn't be a judge. They're in San Francisco. And the only reason that they said Trump can't do this and it went to the Supreme Court is they said it smells like racism. Well, that's not really legal. Like, if that's what the judge's ruling was. Smells like racism. All right. Well, what's your evidence for that? There was no evidence presented that it was a racist thing, right? So in that regard, if you keep getting this, this is how I can see that the Supreme Court's going to be like, there's a lot of judges out there doing things and whatnot. And so I can see some limits being put on that going forward because because the Supreme Court wants the process to work in the end. That's what they're trying to protect. And the more universal injunctions that they have, the slower that process or the more stymied that process gets. They want these cases to percolate up. And if they need to get to the Supreme Court, they'll take a look at that and they say, hey, and they'll decide, do we need to see this? Do we need to hear this case? And they'll hear that case. But again, some of you are, some of the arguments, you don't know how they're going to rule on the Alien Enemies Act. I'm like, yeah, I did. And there it was. I was right. So, yeah, but some of you're some loyal people out there. I don't have that sense of loyalty to any political figure, Trump or otherwise. Never have, never will. All right. Just the last time I was loyal to somebody like that was Reagan. But I was just a kid. What do you want? We were all caught up in Reagan's America in the 80s. It was awesome. We had really good music. All right. So here we go. Boom. Oh, yeah. I forgot about Putin today. I'm not going to, here's the thing. He's having a phone call with Putin today about the Ukraine war. I am not going to comment on that because I want to read the transcript. Now, normally when a president has a phone call with a foreign dignitary, they do release the transcript of that phone call. And there will be some redactions, I think, of course, because there's probably some sensitive information there that's not really public ready or fit for public facing. But I want to read the transcript first before I make a comment on the phone call. You're going to hear a ton of commentary on the phone call itself from people who just weren't even in the room. And they're going to hear little snippets of this, snippets of that. And they're going to make these judgments and they're going to make, and I don't want to do that, especially with something as sensitive as war. And especially sensitive as something as, U.S.-Russia relations. Until I see the transcript, I'm going to hold my tongue on that. And they should release the transcript within 24 to 48 hours. That's one thing the Trump administration was good in the first administration, is that they would release that stuff in a very timely fashion, right? The Biden administration, you couldn't get them to release anything. And again, that's one of the things I do like about this current administration is that whether you like something that they're doing, and there's plenty of stuff that I like, and there's plenty of stuff that I look at and go, that's wrong. But at least they're like, here's what we're doing, all right? Here's the transparency in it to the extent in which we can give, and the guy answers questions. You may not like his answers, but he answers questions, okay? So let's get back to this. So we've had an opinion in the Alien Enemies Act. We had a second opinion in the Alien Enemies Act, and we've had an opinion from the Supreme Court on Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia. This poor bastard. So if you didn't know who this guy is, he's the El Salvadorian that was basically plucked out of Maryland and sent back. He was an illegal immigrant. Okay. Under the Alien Enemies Act, the Trump administration lawyers, the Department of Justice, have already said in court, yeah, this was a mistake. We shouldn't have done that. Let me repeat that. The Trump administration already said in a federal court of law, they shouldn't have done that. It was our mistake. We didn't do the right thing. And then the judge is like, okay, we'll bring him back. And then the Trump administration is like, no. So that's where we're at with this guy. So they had another hearing on it. And yeah, the federal judge wasn't very happy. So U.S. District Judge Paula Zinnes excoriated Trump administration lawyers Friday in a remarkable status hearing centered on Kilmar Armando Garcia, the Salvadorian migrant and alleged MS-13 member. Now, he's alleged to be this. You've heard a lot of stuff about him. He's alleged to be a human trafficker. He's alleged to be a gang member. He's alleged to be a terrorist. He's alleged to be all sorts of stuff, right? Nothing's been proven in a court of law, so he's only alleged. All right, so there was heated back. All right. The judge asking, what kind of world are we living in? What sort of legal world are we living in? So she's pretty pissed off. He was lawfully detained. Okay, so here we go. She sparred multiple times with Department of Justice lawyers over their assertion that Abrego Garcia was lawfully detained and deported. And she questions, he was lawfully detained? No, he wasn't. Judge Zinnes objected, quote, there was no order of removal. ICE didn't have an order of removal. There was no warrant for removal. There was nothing. There was no paperwork. It was basically, like I said, pluck the guy off the street. She cut off Justice Department Attorney Jonathan Guin again when he attempted to continue with a different argument. Quote, you didn't even respond to what I just said, she's told him. A DHS attorney came in she goes, a Department of Homeland Security attorney came in at the first hearing and confirmed that there was no lawful basis to arrest Abrego Garcia. So the Department of Homeland Security, the U.S. government, already walked into a court of law and said, yeah, we didn't have a basis for arresting the guy, but we did, and we put him on a plane and sent him to a prison in El Salvador. She goes, why are we skipping over that as part of the misconduct at issue in light of the pattern I'm currently faced with to this day? So no one could answer. The courtroom fell silent for about 30 seconds. So she's frustrated. There's only so much she can do at this point in time, but she's not getting answers to what's going on with this guy. And she's getting a bunch of I don't knows. So yeah, the guy was picked up off the street. Okay. All right. So prior to quote, you've conceded it. There's witness testimony. Any attempt to revise this would be exceptionally difficult. So the Department of Justice is trying to say, no, we had a legal basis for sending the guy out, for arresting him when they already, she's like, no, you can't just switch it and say we didn't have legal. He doesn't, she goes, so the lawyer, respectfully, Your Honor, he was removed lawfully. She shoots back, no, he was removed unlawfully. He returns, his removal from the U.S. was lawful. Well, no, it wasn't. It just goes back and forth. So this is a shit show. So she goes, because there's actually the Immigration and Naturalization Act, which says that if the United States elects to remove someone to a third country, there's a process. They didn't follow the process. Congress has set out that process. The executive has to follow that process. And again, we go back to the ruling from the Supreme Court saying, you got to follow the process. You can use the Alien Enemies Act, but there's also an additional process there. So again, the Trump administration is following one law but not another here, and it's going to get them into trouble. In the end, it's going to get them into trouble because you just can't ignore the Immunization and Naturalization Act. You can't. It's like, it's the law. It's one of the biggest laws that we've ever passed as a nation. It's the cornerstone of immigration law. You can't just circumnavigate that. And so as much as I like our stance on regulating and getting a little tougher on illegal immigration and getting that under control and border security and all that, which I'm all for, I do want to do it the right way, because in the end, if we don't do it the right way, these people are just going to get released back into the country. So let's do it the right way and have it done with. But that, you win some, you lose some, like I said with in the description. So he's won some, he's lost some. He's going to continue to win and lose, and we'll see what happens with that. We're going to save that for the end. That one's for the end. So the Supreme Court, immensely busy, and the judge immensely mad. The judge is immensely angry. But yeah, there we go. Verify it's you. Yes, it's me. Hold on one second. Before I do that, let me do that incognito. Yeah, when you're down here, by the way, if you're ever in a foreign country and you use a VPN, Google's really sensitive about it. They think that you're always trying to hack somebody or being hacked, or you're just like a nefarious actor. And so they'll sign you out of everything and you'd be like, what? And so you have to re-sign into everything all the time. So it's definitely interesting when that happens. All right. I don't want to do that. Okay, cool. All right. Here we go. Oh, see, will it let me? Will it let me? There we go. All right. So our big, beautiful bill, which is, hey, listen, if you want a job and you're interested in government work, border protection and customs, they're going to be hiring thousands of people according to this bill. If this bill passes in the form that it is, it's going to go through reconciliation. Here's the deal, folks. It's going to go through what they call budget reconciliation, which is, if you're a Republican and a conservative and you like what's in this bill, you're going to like budget reconciliation. Normally, when you have a bill like this, it needs to pass the House, which it'll probably pass the House, right? It then needs to pass the Senate. Now, without reconciliation, just sending it to the Senate, you need, under the rules of the Senate, because it's a budget bill, taxes, all that, you need 60 votes, not a simple 51 majority. Under budget reconciliation, you're allowed to kind of maneuver the bill, massage it in certain ways, make changes that you need to, but the Senate only needs to get a 51 majority vote. So again, that's a rule that applies to both sides. When they're in the majority, it basically shuts out the minority, in this case, the Democrats. So they'll move it through budget reconciliation, and they'll say to the Democrats, go pound sand, is what they're going to say. Now, they're going to have to get there's at least 4 senators, like we mentioned last time when talking about this bill. There's 4 senators that are not totally on board with this thing, and now maybe even a 5th. And in that case, they're probably going to have a slimmer margin. Again, we named the 4 last time. Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, which her state is mentioned prominently in this bill. You've got Susan Collins of Maine. Her state is not mentioned prominently in this bill. So you kind of see what states are getting money, which aren't. We'll see here. We got Josh Hawley of, I believe, Missouri. I could be making a mistake. He's either Missouri, Mississippi. Either way, you know who he is. He's not too happy with some of the Medicaid and Medicare cuts. And then Tom Tillis is also concerned with a lot of the cuts being made to Medicare and Medicaid. But we talked about those in our first rundown. Right now, we're going to talk about immigration, because this bill spends a lot of money, hundreds of billions of dollars. It cuts hundreds of billions, if it cuts trillions out of the federal budget when it comes to healthcare and comes to food stamps, things like that. It cuts out it guts. If you were a fan of the Inflation Reduction Act, which was not really an Inflation Reduction Act, it kind of had a lot of greenhouse and climate change stuff in it. It guts that. We'll get into some of that too. So all that money is just like, yeah, no, we're not spending that. If it hasn't already been obligated, we want it back. But what it does spend a ton of money on is immigration enforcement and setting up really processes, institutions, things like that for immigration enforcement. So it also is giving a cost sharing mechanism to states. Yeah, let me get up here. Let's see here. Cost sharing mechanism to states, and we'll see some of that as we go through it. Oh yes, the United States Secret Service. You want to join the Secret Service? Treasury Department? $1.170 billion given to the U.S. Secret Service. Why? Counterfeit money, or going after money and all sorts of stuff like that. That is involved in illegal activity with illegal immigration, human trafficking, things like that, drug trade. So, yeah, if you want to be a Secret Service agent, which not all Secret Service agents, they don't all just sit there and guard the president or guard people. They do other work, especially when it comes to the Treasury Department. If you want to join, they're going to be high. I mean, they're going to have to. Right now, there's a federal hiring freeze. I mean, if this bill passes, and they want to get it to the president's desk for about July 4th, they really want him to be able to sign this on July 4th to be able to celebrate on the nation's birthday and all that stuff. Yeah, here's where the federal government's going to be hiring, number one. Number two, Customs and Border Enforcement. They're giving even more money to that, and we're going to get into that. But anyways, so a lot of this combating drug trafficking, illegal drug use. Okay. I mean, yeah, it's a lot of money. I ain't got a problem with this. Like, I think, yes, there's a war on drugs, and it's cost a lot. But at some point in time, you just have to say, look, so we're fighting it on both fronts right now. It's not going to go away. For those people who are like, well, we're spending all this money on the war on drugs and it's not getting us anywhere. Yeah, I know. It's because people keep doing drugs. I get it. But still, it's causing a lot of havoc in the country. So I can get on board with doing this as long as it's going to the right thing. Investigating and prosecuting immigration-related matters. All right. Again, illegal immigration, drug trafficking, they go hand in hand. Expedited removal for criminal aliens. Okay, so here's the deal. Expedited removal is a thing. It is allowed for in the Immigration and Naturalization Act under certain circumstances, and so they're just buffing that up and saying, hey, if we find people who we could just not give a court hearing to and just put them on a plane, then there are people who actually fit into that class. I don't want everybody walking away thinking the U.S. Supreme Court says everybody needs a court case. No, not everybody needs a court case. There are certain provisions. If you are found to be a terrorist or found to be a supporter of a terrorist organization, found to be a member of a cartel, if that is something that is proven, right, that you're known for, that's already proven, like they catch you, they've already proven that, this is you. Yeah, they're not giving you a court hearing. They're sending you out. If you're caught within human trafficking violations, that you don't get a court case. You bye-bye. All right. So they're going to really up the ante on that and give about $75 million to buffer that. Removal of certain criminal aliens without further hearing. Again, more of the same. And you can, if you want to read what those portions are of the Immigration and Nationality Act is, it's section 212A, paragraph 2 and 3. I just told you what it is. You don't need to go read it. I already did for you. Regulatory matters. This is just rulemaking. And basically, they're going to try and restructure a lot of things so that it's a smoother process for the administration, not necessarily for the illegal alien. Right? So don't think that they're going to spend all this money to make it easy make it easier for illegal aliens. They're going to make it easier for them to be like, hey, bye-bye. All right. Let's see here. Additional reporting requirements. Just basically a little bit more transparency on where they're sending the money. Approval of certain major rules. Here's something I found interesting. Now, this sounds like the most boring thing you could actually read in the world, but I think the Trump administration might not like this one, right? I don't think maybe they're letting this one stay as part of maybe a bargain they made for something else that they wanted in the bill. But this is basically saying, listen, if you're a federal agency under the executive branch, you can make rules and regulations. That's fine. They only last between 60 and 90 days, depending on the type of rule or regulation is. And unless you've come to us in the legislature, in Congress, and we've passed a joint resolution making that rule or that regulation part of law, then that rule or regulation that you made goes away. It's null and void. And cannot be reinstated later or extended, right? So you've got 60 to 90 days, which is kind of a power grab for the legislature when you think about it. The one thing I know about Donald Trump lately is that he likes to move quickly, right? He likes to put in a law and say, I want to move quickly. This is something that I didn't think was going to be as prevalent in this tax bill as it is. But anyways, it's the legislature saying, hey, we know you like to make rules and stuff, but we're still the legislature. We're still Article 1. We're still the people that are actually supposed to do that ourselves. Granted, Congress is a mess most of the time and can't do anything on their own, all right? Unless somebody gives them a real kick in the ass or there's some sort of crisis. But that is what this giant board. I read this too. All right. So, some of you might be not liking my opinions on certain things, but at least give me the credit and say, all right, Gringo, you sat down this morning with a cup of coffee and read through this crap for us. So we didn't have to. It goes on and on and on and on. Congressional Review Act compliance, again, part of the same thing. It's all about Congress saying, hey, we're the ones that make the laws. Limitation on donations made pursuant to settlements. All right, lawsuits, basically limitations. Like a federal agency can't say, yeah, we did something bad, and we'll give you $10 million to settle a lawsuit. No, they can't do that. It needs to go, there needs to be limitations on that type of thing. So, all right, we'll go through all this. All right, here's the fun stuff. Okay, do you like oil? Do you like natural gas? Do you like coal? Do you like natural minerals like cobalt and things like that and lithium? Do you like to dig in the ground? Well, then this part of the bill is for you, because damn, if you're a member of the fossil fuel community, you're about to make some bank. And if you're looking for a job, damn, this is where you can go as well if you don't want to work for the federal government and you want to go dig in the ground and pump for oil. This is a very long portion of this bill. All right. It took a while for me to get through it. Not only is it talking, part one is just oil and gas. All right. There is a lot in this bill. And this bill is basically saying to the Secretary of the Interior, Doug Burgum, former governor, saying to him, go nuts, go dig, drill, baby, drill. That's what this is all about. So, under the Mineral and Leasing Act, okay, some context. The Biden administration basically froze most of the federal leases or land leases or lease grants that they would give to companies to explore for natural gas, oil, coal, things like that. They said, no, it's bad for the environment. And they basically shut down most of the new leasing that was going on. And they made it very difficult for the ones that were still available to actually become available. Now, if you're an environmentalist, you're like, yay, that's awesome. If you're someone who's like, no, I work for the fossil fuel industry and we need to make money, you're like, that sucked. Listen, here's where I'm going to tell you where I fall, okay? Yeah, I want to protect the environment. That's great. But we have an economy that runs on oil and gas. We have an economy that needs plastics, which need oil. We have an economy that needs coal. We have an economy that needs all these other natural. Like if you have an iPhone, you have a cell phone, then you've got cobalt in there and lithium in your battery and all that. So if you don't like that, like if you're an environmentalist and you're like, oh, we can't dig for that stuff. Okay, then get rid of your computer and your iPhone and all your other stuff that's made out of plastic. Listen, I want to protect the environment as much as possible, but I'm also a realist. Until the economy is transitioned to something that is not oil and natural gas based, which is going to take a long time, we need to continue to find oil and natural gas. And you can either buy it from other places at an exorbitant amount and be at their, their whims, I grew up in the 70s where it's like, hey, the Middle East is having a temper tantrum. Now they're not going to give us oil. What do we do? Well, you stop driving, you ration, things like that. That sucks. All right. So been through that. Don't want to be there again. So I'm okay with some of this stuff. But man, they're going to go ape on this stuff. Okay. So to start out with, every year, the Secretary of the Interior needs to grant at least a minimum of 4 oil and gas leases in each of the following states, not 4 total, in each. So Wyoming, minimum 4. New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, Montana, North Dakota, Oklahoma, Nevada, Alaska, minimum 4. You could see 20 in each. Who knows, right? And in any other state in which there is land available for oil and gas leasing under the Mineral Leasing Act or any other mineral leasing law. Okay. People in New England who are like, you find a lot of liberals and environmentalists in New England. Why? I know, I grew up there. Okay. That's where I come from. Don't worry about that. There's no oil in Massachusetts. There's no coal. All right. I mean, to really speak of. So no one's drilling in Massachusetts. But these other states, hey, here they come. Okay. And again, we're just talking about oil and natural gas at this point. All right. Now, what gets real interesting as we go through all of this, and again, I'm not going to read everything to you. I've already read leasing of oil and gas. Just go and lease it, go and drill, go and explore, go and find it, all that fun stuff, okay? And it goes through and through. Now, what I found very interesting as we get through the end. Again, this goes on for 70, 80, 90 pages. What I found very interesting is that the legislature has built in language in this bill to say, hey, the courts can't get involved. Once the Secretary of the Interior makes a decision on whether something is viable or not, whether it's going to impact the environment negatively or not, whether we should drill in a certain spot or not, or dig in a certain spot or not, once the Secretary of the Interior makes that decision, it is not for judicial review. Which basically means if you've got a group of people, okay, let's say you got an oil company moving into Montana, they're like, hey, we have this piece of land, and we want to drill there to see if there's oil. And the Secretary of Interior reads all the documents, reads all the briefs, reads all the reports, reads all the, right? And says, yeah, drill there. Once he says that and says it's good to go, no other little group of people or environmental group or not can come and say, we're going to sue or we're going to go to a court to get an injunction to stop you because we think there's an environmental issue, or we think it's going to be a pollutant, or we think that there's going to be runoff that's going to affect something down the road. They're taking that judicial process out. They're putting it squarely into the Department of the Interior and saying these types of things are no longer subject to court order. Now, some of you out there would be like, yeah, that's great. Makes things speed up. And some of you out there would be like, that sucks, because what if it does have an environmental impact that no one's talking about? You know, what if there is oil runoff and it goes downstream and affects, I don't know, some bird? I don't want the bird to die either. But this is the legislature. This is our Congress. And when Congress makes a law, and when Congress passes a law, it's the law. And so that is what you're getting throughout. That is one of the most stunning things that I found throughout this entire bill, reading it. And especially probably the most stunning part of the entire portion of our energy and commerce section here that we've got. And then again, we're only talking about right now oil and gas. This whole section hasn't even transitioned to coal or anything like that. Yeah, here we go. Let's see. Let's go to the next subheading. Permit fees. It lowers permit fees. It has more fair royalty and revenue sharing between states and governments and whatnot. Oh, by the way, one other thing. Going back to the immigration thing, one other thing I wanted to get you guys in on. Part of this tax bill says, hey, if you're a state and you catch a bunch of illegal immigrants, it costs money to keep them in jail, right? But if you cooperate with ICE, we're going to pay that money to you. So this is some incentives. So all these states that are like, no, we're not going to cooperate with you because ICE bad, right? Well, they're spending all this money jailing these people in the first place and then releasing them anyways. So there's a little bit of a revenue sharing thing there. Anyways, I thought that was interesting too. Again, it's just the incentive nature of this whole bill. So let's get here. Permitting fee for non-federal land. Again, they're lowering the fees. They're making it easier to go and drill and whatnot. They are protected. Like if it's a national park, a national monument, already a wildlife, if it's already a protected part of the country, you can't go drill there. Okay. So anybody out there thinking that they're going to go, drill in Yosemite, no, it's not going to happen. Although national forests and national parks, good luck. You're about to get screwed. We're going to get to that in a minute. Which I thought was, wow, they're really geothermal leasing. Again, fracking. I don't know. Listen, I've heard good and bad about fracking. I don't know. Again, I don't know. I've done enough environmental studies during my policy work, during my academic career, to know that there's reports that I can show you to say fracking doesn't do anything bad to the environment. And there's reports out there that I can show you this is fracking destroys the environment. I leave it up to you to think what you want to think. Coastal plain and oil gas leasing, totally Alaska. This is totally Alaska. All right. Alaska, you're about to they're going to open up ANWR. They're going to open up all that stuff. Alaska's about to be open for the oil business. It's going to be interesting. So there's going to be an oil and natural gas boom in Alaska. Again, if you're a fossil fuel kind of person, and you're like energy independence and all that stuff, this is awesome for you. If you're an environmentalist that thinks this is totally all bad, this bill is going to make you cry and sit in a corner because like I said, they've already taken away your ability to even sue in court if this passes to stop anything. So good luck. Both sides, right? I don't want to see. We'll see what happens here. Canceled leases. Let's see. So yeah, this is all Alaska. So there's a lot of money to be pumped into that state, which makes me think Lisa Murkowski is going to have to change her mind on some of these things. She's a senator from Alaska. Here we go. Judicial preclusion. That's what I was talking about. All right. Basically saying, once review, secretary to act in accordance. So once the secretary acts, that's it. All right. That's it. All right. Here we go. The National Petroleum Reserve Alaska, again, continuing to do that and pump that up. They want to basically build up our National Petroleum Reserve again and actually probably double it in size, I think is what Trump said he wanted to do. So again, not a lot of money being spent here, but a lot of money being, a lot of regulations being taken off. Which is saving money, I guess, if you want to look at it that way. When you take off regulations, you take off fees and fines and things like that. So let's continue. Mining. Hey, anybody living in Minnesota? They just opened up. They're going to open up your whole state for mining. I'm sure Tim Walz is going to love this, the governor, if he even reads this thing. But it looks like, here we go. The public land order of the Bureau of Land Management titled Public Land Order Number 7917 for withdrawal of federal lands, Cook, Lake, and St. Louis counties, Minnesota, is hereby rescinded and shall have no force or effect. So whatever land that this was protecting, right? So whatever land in Cook, Lake, and St. Louis counties in Minnesota that were being protected from being mined because they're federal lands, you no longer be, if this bill passes, it's no longer going to be protected. And they're going to go and they're going to mine it. They're going to mine it for whatever the precious metals are that they want or whatever they're looking for. So again, certain states here are mentioned prominently in this tax bill. So we've seen Alaska. Now we've seen Minnesota. And again, people in Minnesota, I don't know how you're going to feel about that. I don't live in Minnesota. Been to Minneapolis, nice city once. Okay. Kind of dry, cold, but, I don't know. I've never been to Minnesota. I'm not sure exactly which way the wind blows up there, but hey, you're going to have some mining opportunities if you're looking for some jobs. Land of 10,000 lakes, right? Or something like that. I don't know. But yes, again, judicial review, the reinstatement modification of grant lease or combination under this section is not subject for judicial review. Again, every section, they're removing the idea that the courts can step in or that a citizen or a state government can step into the courts and file an injunction to get any of this environment, any of this energy projects to stop. So they're absolutely taking away that ability. And that's what the Congress can do. Because again, Article 1, Congress writes the laws, and that you don't like them, change Congress. But that's what Ambler Road in Alaska. We're going back to Alaska. Ambler Road in Alaska. Again, another conservation act is being rescinded. Okay, rescind the record of decision published. Reinstate the secretary for that. Basically, hey, we're gonna go drill. We're gonna go mine it. Judicial review, no judicial review. Bye-bye. All right. So coal gets its own section. So West Virginia, hey, let's get some coal mining going. All right. Pennsylvania, wherever you guys do coal mining. Again, up to the Secretary of the Interior. Once he makes a decision that piece of land is good for coal mining, that's it. Done. The only person who can change his mind is the president. By just calling it up, going, change your mind. I don't think the president's going to change his mind. I don't think the president's going to be like, yeah, we shouldn't drill. Yeah, we shouldn't dig. One of the president's priorities is energy independence, and this is all aimed at it, right? 4 million additional acres for coal mining. All right. Minimum. Minimum. The Secretary of the Interior needs to find a minimum of 4 million additional acres for coal mining. That's a lot of acres. Oh, and it has to be west of the 100th meridian, located in the 48 contiguous states and Alaska. So Hawaii's off the, but it can't be a national monument. All that, they're going to protect all the stuff that's already protected. Fish hatchery, historical site, national battlefield, all that, right? So there you go. Future coal leasing, coal royalties, again, lowering those, making those more affordable, more favorable to get things going. Authorization to mine federal lands. Yes, we're going to mine federal lands. NEPA. Yeah. Project sponsor opt-in fees for environmental reviews. Okay. Again, they're going to kind of limit these environmental reviews going forward. The section I wanted to get to. Oh yeah, here we go. So if you were not a fan of the Inflation Reduction Act because it had so much climate change stuff in it, so much what they call the Green New Deal, if you weren't a fan of that, this bill tears it to shreds. This bill guts it. This bill just absolutely just hammers it to hell. Like, this bill is like AOC's worst nightmare, right? This is like taking her baby and throwing it in the ocean. All right, rescission relating to environmental and climate data collection. The unobligated balance of any amounts made available under Section 60401 of Public Law 117-169 is rescinded. If you didn't know what Public Law 117-169 is, that's basically the Inflation Reduction Act or the Green New Deal, or the Green New Scam is what Trump calls it. So they're basically piece by piece. You're going to see this throughout this bill. They're piece by piece just taking away the funding. Take away the funding. Take away the funding. It's like, wait, we had funding. Now, there's a couple places where they take away the funding. I'm like, can we leave that one? Like, that one I kind of like. All right, but we'll get to that. Let's see here. Oh, they're going to charge you to protest. Like, if you want to file something in court about anything or protest anything that's not already specifically said you can't review, you have to pay certain fees. So it's going to cost money, which I think it does now. Offshore oil and gas leasing, the Gulf of America. Yep. We're not forgetting about the Gulf of America. We're already there, but we're going to continue to drill in there. Oh yeah, here we go. The secretary shall hold not fewer than one lease sale on or before each of the following dates. August 15th, March 15th. So basically, every month, March, August. Wow, just going right. I mean, they're really all the way to 2040. I told you this bill isn't for a year or two. This bill is long lasting. So again, if you want to go get a job and you're okay with this type of work, I hear oil and gas workers get paid really well. I mean, if you're looking for a job and the economy ain't doing it for you right now, again, I've already told you, you could go, we saw the defense spending last time. You could go build ships and submarines. All right. We're going to be looking for tons of that. You could now join the Secret Service, the Treasury Department, Border Protection, Customs. They're going to be hiring thousands. With the Customs one, by the way, I skipped over the section where it said in 2025, they need to hire 2,500 more people. Customs and Border alone. That's in the bill. That's literally in the bill. Hire 2,500 people. And then for the next 5 years after that, it's like hire another 1,000, hire another 1,600, hire another 50. Ridiculous amounts. Again, if you don't mind working for the government and this is the work you want to do and you're comfortable with it, there's going to be plenty of jobs out there. So they're going to be making some jobs. There's going to be making some jobs here. Again, you may argue with me on the merits of the impact on the environment and all that stuff and all that. And I get all that. I understand all that. I really do. But I'm just telling you what is here. What's in here. All right, let's see here. Yeah, I did. By the way, we've already gone over 100 pages of this bill, even though it's only 1,000. Yes, I did read all this shit this morning. God, and I was like, I need a double cup of coffee. I needed it. I really did. I don't know how people sit and write this stuff all the time. I really don't. It's like a different language. You have to learn. It's like learning a different language. The outer continental shelf, offshore commingling, whatever. We don't care. We just want to go drill. Okay. Renewable energy. So renewable energy fees on federal lands. So you're going to see some of those get recalculated. And what they're defined as, some of them for better, some of them for worse. Again, it's just moving money around. That's all it is. But they're not going to be they're not going to be nice with the renewable energy fees. They're going to take away any of those subsidies and things like that have been there. We already talked about that in the last stream. Revenue sharing, all that. Where is the forest part? Water, wildlife, and fisheries. Okay. Here's the one where I kind of like, can we keep these? Rescission of funds for investing in coastal communities and climate resilience. Okay, I understand this one. This one's the climate change bullshit one, right? Section 40001 of the Inflation Reduction Act. Okay, so they're going to take away that money. That's fine. I get that. I'm okay with that. All right, that one I can be okay with. I get it. It's based off of a science not everybody believes in. Good. All right. Rescission of funds for facilities of National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and National Marine Sanctuaries. This one, can we leave? All right. This is part of the Inflation Reduction Act. I get it. It's billions of dollars that you're trying to save here. But I think the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration should have some of those funds. They do monitor the weather for like when hurricanes and shit are coming. The Navy relies on them for weather reports when they're sailing. Like, what are we sailing into, boys? The National Marine Sanctuaries, I think we should protect that stuff. That stuff's already being protected, that money. There's one here, federal lands, where they get rid of the money for the National Forest. They cut out the National Forest budget. And it was, here we go. Rescission of Forest Service funds. This one is for basically park management, land management, national forests, things like that. It's not a lot of money. It's like $500 million, $500 million. I mean, in the great scheme of things, this is one of the things I'm like, can we keep that? Like that one, I'm like, can we? But he wants to cut down trees as part of our energy independence and things like that. And I really think the National Forest should be left alone, personally. The next one, the rescission of National Park Service and Bureau of Land Management funds. Basically, no more hiring of park rangers, and we're going to reduce that workforce and the people who work in the parks and things like that. So that's going to get reduced. Trail management, if you like hiking, if you like trail, if you like going to that, all that's going to get reduced. So you're going to see a lot of the service and upkeep and maintenance of our national parks and national forests. You're going to see that reduced. When you think about national parks, you think about like the Lincoln Memorial, like that whole area. That's a national park. It's not just a place where there's a bunch of trees, right? Mount Rushmore is a national park. So you're going to see a lot of these things. You're going to see some, I think, some upkeep issues if you're someone who likes to go to these places and enjoy the great outdoors. So yeah. And then the next one is the same similar thing as far as upkeep and management they're taking out. And again, these are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, if not totaling into a few $1 billion. And if you're going to spend trillions on defense, you got to cut it somewhere else. And so far, we've seen cuts in Medicare. We've seen cuts in food stamps, SNAP program, and we've seen cuts in the environment, and a lot of the cuts in the environment. Now, again, the Green New Deal should never have been passed. It was a horrible bill. So I'm okay with that not being passed, and I'm okay with a lot of that stuff being called back. But I think some of the stuff in there should remain. Some. Again, I'm a fan of the National Forest. I guess that's my bias. So, and again, the more rescission of funds going there. But we are going to celebrate America's 250th anniversary. We're going to allocate $150 million for events, celebrations, and activities related to the observance and commemoration of the 250th anniversary of the founding of the United States, and $40 million to carry out Executive Order 13934 as July 3rd, July 3rd, 2020. And I believe that's the military parade, the National Guard. Oh, nope, that's to build the National Garden of American Heroes. If you don't know what that is, That's going to be another part of, like, if you go to like the Washington Monument, that whole National Mall, I believe they're putting it there, where it's going to be Trump gets to pick the statues of the people who are going to be national heroes. I'm not sure. He's already picked some people, but I guess future presidents will be able to pick as well. And you know, I am unclear on who he has picked. So if you give me a second, I should have, let's see here. Who has Trump picked as national heroes? Let's see here. Yeah, artists wanted for Trump's, let's see, Kennedy, Albert Einstein, Sally Ride, Sacagawea, Sitting Bull, John Singer Sargent, Duke Ellington, Bessie Smith, Lauren Bacall, Amelia Earhart. I mean, that's a pretty good group. Kobe Bryant. Kobe's an American hero. All right. Ronald Reagan. That's quite a list. The full list is here. Okay, let's see. Who else did we miss? Just give me a list. Don't give me an article. I don't want the art. I want to see it. Okay, here we go. Wow, that's a huge list. If you want to see the list, you can see it in the executive order that he signed. William Bradford, Norman Borlaug, William F. Buckley Jr., George Washington Carver, Johnny Cash. All right. Johnny Appleseed Chapman. All right. I mean, if you're in grade school, I guess that means something. Walt Disney's in there. Emily Dickinson, good poet. Aretha Franklin, Benjamin. Wow, this goes on and on and on and on and on. This is a huge one. Alfred Hitchcock. Wasn't Alfred Hitchcock from Britain? I could be wrong. I thought he spoke with a British accent, or he just talks like this. Jackie Robinson, Theo Roosevelt. All right. Cy Young. They can't put Ty Cobb in there. Please say they didn't put Ty Cobb in there. Ty Cobb, that guy was so racist. He was a racist. No Ty Cobb. Okay. But anyways, wow, that's a huge list. I mean, there's a lot. So, all right. So 40 million for that. We already got the heroes term. All right. Long-term contracts. Now, there's one other thing here I wanted to talk about. I'm going to try to get to it. And I didn't know how to feel about this one. MAGA accounts. Yeah, there we go. Let's go to the MAGA accounts. Section 11. Yeah. Let's see here. Okay. You're probably asking, what the hell is a MAGA account? A MAGA account is, and I don't know how everybody's going to feel about this, because it doesn't benefit everybody. So for children born in 2025 and after, the government is going to take $1,000 seed money, put it into a special account. Now, you've got to be a legal citizen, your social security number, all that. It's going to go into mutual funds. Basically, the government's going to invest money for you to help teach you about money. And that money is going to grow. And parents can also, or people, anybody can put money into the account up to $5,000 a year to continue to grow in these mutual funds. Basically, the government is becoming an investment banker. And then when you turn, I think it's 18 or 19 or whatever year, I think it's 18, you can start to withdraw that money. Now, the money is not taxable while it's in the account, while it grows. When you start taking it out, it's taxable. You're going to have the regular capital. If it's for certain purposes like school or home or whatnot, it's going to be taxable at, say, like a 16 to 20%. If you just take it out before, I want to take it out and have a party, you'll see capital gains tax of around 37.5%. Again, I don't know how I guess I'm okay with it. It's only it's $17 billion, almost $18 billion in costs. So it's not a huge revenue taker. it is a Democrat idea. I mean, let's face it, they call it MAGA accounts, but this is pretty much the same idea that Cory Booker, Democratic senator from New Jersey, and Ayanna Pressley, Democratic congresswoman from Massachusetts, proposed a few years ago, and it has huge bipartisan support because it generates taxes. I mean, it does generate taxes. It does generate tax revenue in the long run. I think they rebranded it, MAGA. Okay, fine. But again, I think back to the same people who were like, when we talk about student loans, right? We talk about student loan forgiveness. Why should my tax money go to somebody else's education? I think, won't those same people think, why should my tax dollars go to the benefit of another child that I didn't have? Why shouldn't that just go to me? Why can't I have the same account, but just put say it's going to be available when I'm 20, it'll be available when I'm 38. I don't know. It's an interesting debate I think we can have. But again, when you start giving money to certain programs that benefit only certain people, and you start to become, where's the inclusion with it all? I don't know. I think certain normal everyday Americans are going to have a problem with this when they read into it. I think the purpose behind it is awesome. If there's one thing our schools fail at, it's teaching us about money and how to manage money. Like, this should be a thing. It should be a thing in school, starting early, right? Because if there's anything that's going to affect you in life, it's your ability to manage money, all right? Not whether you can climb a friggin' rope in gym class. I mean, I'm not saying it's not important to be able to climb a rope in gym class. I'm just saying we need to teach kids about money because there's so many people that have no clue about money, no clue how to manage money. So these are the MAGA accounts. I think this will stay in. I can't see the Republicans getting rid of anything called MAGA. Imagine that. Like kind of like a backhanded slap to Trump. It's like something that actually has his logo on it. They're going to cut. So, and it's, like I said, it's something the Democrats proposed in a similar fashion. They called it they had sort of like a savings account kind of deal. This is a little bit more intricate in the way of mutual funds and whatnot, but it's pretty much a similar deal that the Democrats proposed a couple years ago. So I can see it staying in there. I can see it being a government thing that people in the government are like, yeah, we like this. But I'm wondering if everyday Americans are going to be like the same everyday Americans, like my tax dollars shouldn't go to paying for something else that doesn't benefit me. So I don't know. It's an interesting debate. It's in the long run, if it's $18 billion, which if you read this tax bill, $18 billion is like me taking $50 out of my wallet. So I think it's going to be, I think the press is going to kill it. I think most of the mainstream media is going to kill it because it's called MAGA. They hate anything called MAGA. I get it. They are who they are. I don't want to start a debate about the press, but anything called MAGA they hate. So we'll see. We'll see how this works. They got different plans. Employer credit. You could put in, if you get a deployment, you could put in. If you get a child and they got their account, you want to, instead of giving it to your 401k, you want to give it to your child's MAGA account. You can do that. All right. And pump that up. I don't know who's going to manage these funds. That's a big question. Like, it doesn't answer the question, like, who's managing these? Like, is it going to be Fidelity? Like, is it going to be like who's doing this? Who's managing this money? We don't know. But I mean, we'll see. I don't want it to be the Federal Reserve because they're not really part of the government. I don't know if I want it to be is it going to be a new section of the Treasury Department? Don't know. We don't know. But yeah, the MAGA accounts. And let me know what you think of those too. Do you care about it? Are you okay with $1,000 or $17 billion of your tax money going to children who aren't yours? If what if your children, my children are grown. They're not going to get these accounts. I'm not going to get these accounts. This doesn't benefit me one bit. Do I care? I don't know yet. I've been thinking about it. I've been mulling it over. I don't know. kind of on the fence. I love the idea of educating the country about how to take care of their money. I love that idea. I love the purpose and intent behind this. It's also a revenue generator. Let's just face that. But then again, it's something that doesn't benefit me personally. So can I love it? I don't know. That's where I'm at with that. So, all right, with that, that was a lot. We have one more story. All right. So my immigration stuff probably pissed off a bunch of conservatives, and I'll be getting angry comments later, like I did this weekend. This bill, I ran through it, probably pissed off a lot of liberals. I get that. We're cutting climate change. I get that. I understand that. I guess I'm just going to piss off everybody now. We're going to end illegal discrimination and resorting to merit-based opportunity. Okay. The Civil Rights Act of 1964, roughly 60 years ago, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was passed. At the time, it was a critical piece of legislation. Now it's a much debated one, whether it's needed or not. But, as part of that, when Jimmy Carter was president, he entered into an agreement to do federal hiring and promotions on more of an inclusionary process instead of merit-based, no longer merit-based. So it's basically the war on DEI. Trump wants to end it. He signed an executive order for it. And so he wants to undo part of something that's part of the Civil Rights Act. And I'm okay with it. I'll give you an example, folks. Okay. So have any of you ever wanted to work for the State Department? And by that, I mean work in embassies, become a foreign service officer. Well, it used to be that to become a foreign service officer, you had to take one of the hardest, if not the hardest, standardized tests the government ever offered. It was called the Foreign Service Officer's Test. And I've taken this test multiple times. I've actually, on one time, I almost scored. I came close to scoring perfect on it because I had taken it so many times I knew what to expect. But it is a test that can test you on any subject. You name it, they'll test. It's up for grabs. Technology, computers, English literature, literature in general, current events, math, algebra, calculus, measuring, science, any type of science, political history, ancient history, religion, theology. Again, if it's a subject matter you can think of, they can throw in a question. All right, they can throw in a question on this. It's a time test. It's got multiple sections. Then it's got an English expression section, which if you don't know what that is, if you don't know the rules of grammar, don't take this test. This test will that section will kill you. What's a gerund? There's a word you probably haven't heard since like a long. If you don't know what a gerund is, don't take this test. If you don't know where and how to use a semicolon, don't take this test. All right. Then it's got a written portion where it's a timed essay. You have to take a side and write an influential 3-paragraph essay. So it's got English expression, general knowledge. Then it's got the essay. Then it's got another one where it gives you situational knowledge, where it'll give you a bunch of situations where it's like, this is a situation you're in. Choose the best option to do and choose the worst. And it gives you 4 to 5, it gives you about 5 options, right? And you can answer half of it right, all of it wrong, half of it wrong. But it goes on there, like professional situational questions, which sounds easy. It isn't. Now, it used to be that you take the test. If you scored above 154, then you got invited to the next step. As long as you also had to do a personal narrative, what's your career history, all that. They don't want, so they want to be able to see that. So if they like your career history, what your track, if you weren't in trouble with the law, you weren't screwing up your student loans, and you passed the test, or you got above 154, most likely you were going to be invited to the next step in the hiring process, which is about a year to year and a half hiring process if you want to become a foreign service officer. And that is to go to Washington, D.C., sit there in front of a panel, do all sorts of exercises, and they rate you. And then out of that assessment, if there's 20 people there, 30 people there, they'll probably take 3 or 4. It's a very difficult job to get. I've heard of people taking the test 9, 10, 12 times just to get to that assessment section. And then you got to go through security clearance, all that, background checks, all that bullshit, right? And that can take up to a year and a half. Anyways, point is, at somewhere along the ways, they decided tests are racist. I didn't know that, but again, tests are racist. So they made the decision that the score doesn't matter. Whatever you score on the test doesn't matter. You could score perfect on the test, but you look like me. Don't matter. They wanted diversity, equity, inclusion. And so much so that there was a leaked memo that came out. Ted Cruz got a hold of it. Brian Mast, congressman from Florida, got a hold of it. And they brought the head of DEI for the State Department in front of Congress a couple of years ago. And they asked her about it. They said, what is this? And she denied ever knowing about it. But it was a leaked memo that was going between all the recruiters of the State Department. It basically said, we are no longer to consider hiring white straight males or straight males in general, or people of a certain religious background, Christians, or people with disabilities. And there was no answer. Trump ended all that bullshit, right? He just basically said, if you qualify, then you qualify, right? He ended all the hiring, first off. But now he's trying to say, listen, if you qualify, you qualify. I can get on board with that. Like, I want the people working in the embassies who are negotiating trade deals for the United States, who are protecting the borders and for the United States, who are making sure visa applications are processed correctly for the United States, who are making sure that we have proper political knowledge and relationships with the foreign countries that we're in for the United States. I want all those people to be smart. I want them to be able to take a hard test and pass it. I want them to be knowledgeable. I don't care what their skin color is. I don't care what their last name is. I don't care what religion they are. I don't care. I just want them to be smart people that are capable of doing the right thing and understanding, right? If I'm ever in I live in a foreign country. If I ever need to call my consulate or my embassy in Mexico City and say, hey, I have an emergency. I'm an American citizen. I need help. I want the person on the other end of the phone to be fucking competent and smart. I don't want them to be there just because they checked off a box. I think that's reasonable in certain situations. I think that's reasonable for this. I think it's a reasonable thing that he's going after this. Now, is he going to try to end 60 years of civil rights acts? No, he's not. He's just trying to say, listen, this part that was added on by the Carter administration, it doesn't make sense anymore. And this test, by the way, it doesn't cost any money to prepare for this test. Like when you talk about online government tests, all the shit you need is free online. If you want to know how to pass the Foreign Service exam, go to the State Department. There's a whole slew of web pages they got there for free. All sorts of resources, practice exams, all that stuff. And they offer you special, like if you sign up for it, you can be like, every month you're in a webinar with actual Foreign Service officers telling you everything you need to know to pass the freaking test. Like, all the information is there, folks. It's already free for everybody, right? I mean, unless you don't have internet, I guess that's the only thing you can argue. But then again, that's it. So it's not like it's like, I didn't have to click on a thing saying I'm white and male, so I can get this information for free. Like, it didn't. So I get it. The whole idea of not understanding what merit is, like, oh, you worked hard, you achieved something, oh, you should be rewarded. Who cares? Who cares what the skin color is? So I agree with all this. Again, there's probably half of you out there that just think this is bullshit. But again, I think it's about time. It's about time. So with that, I do think that's a right move for President Trump. I think it's a good thing. So as much as I hammered him on immigration, there's some things he does right. So, and I agree with that. So with that, woo, it's a beautiful day. It is a beautiful day. Let me get back here. Let me get back to me. All about me. All right. I think we've been streaming for quite a while now. About an hour, right? Sweet. With that, I'm going to let you guys go. I'm going to go and have some lunch. Enjoy the rest of my day. Get ready for Late Night with the Gringo later on tonight. We're going to talk about pop culture and all that fun stuff because there's plenty of stuff to talk about. But with that, just wish everybody the best and hope you're enjoying it. If you get the day off today, enjoy it. From south of the border, I'm still your reluctant gringo. Salud, a huevo. I'm not out of here.
You a racist? Do you hate Mexicans?
So long, gay boys!